Welcome to session 2 of Lean Blueprint. In this session, we will understand what all different forms of waste that are present in the process and how we can eliminate that waste. So, let us understand different forms of waste which we can think of. The first form of waste is overproduction. If you are working on a software development and if you are creating or if you are developing features more than required number of features, or if you are developing some extra functionality which was not asked by the customer or which might not make any sense, and you might think that as a complimentary you are offering that to your customer, that is counted under overproduction. So we should avoid overproduction. So because that is going to consume your time, your effort, and that is going to consume the cost as well from project perspective. So we have to think of reducing such waste. So one form of waste is overproduction. The second form of waste is waiting. There should not be any waiting window between the processes. That was implemented in manufacturing industry. The same applies to software development also. Like if you are developing a software, for example, if the design specialist is working on design of the software, then the tester should not sit idle waiting for the developed software to come in front of him and he will then test. What he can do is he has to start working on the test cases and business test cases and stuff, so that we will be able to reduce the waiting time and we will be able to work efficiently. So waiting, basically it counts for efficiency. You have to ensure that all your project activities are efficient. The third form of waste is transportation. So this mainly applies in non-software industry, because in manufacturing industry it may so happen that they might be manufacturing some parts of a particular product at one place and they might be shifting it to other plant through transportation. So that might also be causing some delay in the process. So that is counted under waste. The fourth form of waste is task switching. So in a manufacturing process or a production line, if your production line is so much complicated and if it is not simple, and between while the process it switches from between the tasks, it might be consuming a lot of time. And is avoiding task switching will also save a lot of time and it will reduce the non-value adding activity, which is task switching, and it will help you to make your process efficient. For example, in software development we can consider that the developers, they might be working on the coding activity, and at the same time if they get involved in creating some other project work, then it may so happen that they might not be able to concentrate on their coding effort and they might have to switch between that coding task and other tasks. So such things have to be avoided so as to get more efficiency. The next form of waste is unnecessary inventory. So this also mainly applies to manufacturing industry, wherein you should not accumulate more and more inventory and you should follow just in time principle. That means you should have minimum inventory, and whenever required you should order for more inventory and you should not accumulate it or store it. That is also a form of waste. In software, we can talk about the human resources. Like you should not procure human resources or the inputs in the form of physical resources very well in advance, or you should think of acquiring those resources whenever required. It should not happen like you might be needing some resource after 3 months on your software project and you are hiring that resource today. That means next 3 months that resource is going to sit idle. So that thing should not happen. This is one of the example I'm giving you. You should avoid waste. The next form of waste is defects. You have to try to come up with a quality in your product, and so as to build quality in your product, you have to implement those different set of principles and practices which will help you to avoid defects in your product, and it will avoid rework at a later date. Rework is going to cost you, it is going to consume your time, it is going to consume your resources, and it might bring down customer morale. So as to avoid those all things, you have to reduce defects. Partially done work. If some of the work is partially done, that is also counted under a form of waste. So what you should be doing is, instead of keeping 4 to 5 partially done works aside, you should think of completing one task full and then you switch to another task. Or if you are able to manage those tasks parallelly, that is also well and good. But it should not happen that you are working on one task and you have just left it half done, and then you have started on the second task and you have left that task also half done, and you are switching between the tasks. So that is going to add to waste in your process. The next form of waste is extra features. You should concentrate more on the features that are desired in your product, that are required in your product, and you have to focus on whether you are able to deliver, whether your product is able to deliver the required functionality. So the core functionality has to be perfect instead of working on extra features and spending extra effort and time. The next form of waste is incorrect processing. You have to ensure that your processes, your tools, your systems are set up correctly so that you will not end up processing something which is incorrect. For example, in software development, you have to point your automation tool to the right code base so that after your coding is completed, the automation system, it will directly build your code base, and that too the latest version and the latest code base it will build. So you should review those kind of stuff and you should avoid mistakes as far as possible, because it is after all the manual effort which goes on and manual intervention is there in each and every task. But whenever we automate things, we have to ensure that we have set up all the systems correctly. The next form of waste is relearning. When you do some mistake, and if you are learning from that mistake, then you have to remember that for that mistake, what was the workaround and what was the permanent solution that you have implemented. And you can think of maintaining a known error database in your project so that it will be beneficial for other team members and other project team members and the new members who will come in your project. So that will avoid a lot of rework, because today you might be discovering that problem and you might be finding some solution and you might be implementing that. And if you are not keeping a record of that solution and that problem, after few months or few weeks down the line, some other team member of your project might be getting the same problem and he might be reinventing the wheel, which is a waste. Okay, so these are the different forms of waste which we can see in the manufacturing process or even the software development process, and we have to work towards removing these all forms of waste or removing all the non-value adding activities. So this is all about different forms of waste. So our primary focus in Lean framework is to remove waste. In our upcoming sessions, we will understand how we can remove this waste and what all practices we need to implement, what all principles we need to adopt so as to implement Lean framework in our project. Yeah, we'll meet in the next video. Until then, bye.